If you click the link to this video, then you already know that earlier this year, Black Panther was released to critical acclaim. Personally, when I saw the film, I thought it was disappointing and definitely not worthy of all the hype it had received, but I wasn't going to do anything about it. I've never posted a public YouTube video before, let alone one which criticizes or analyzes a movie. However, I'd heard that some people were saying Killmonger is the best Marvel villain of all time, and upon investigating, I found that such claims were indeed being made. And not simply by random individuals, but by well-established entities in the entertainment industry, like GameSpot and ScreenCrush. I realize that I'm in the minority, but it's my belief that they and others are offering the movie far more praise than it deserves. Today, I'm going to explain why I believe that Killmonger and Black Panther are grossly overrated. As you've undoubtedly noticed, Black Panther has done very well. In fact, on movie review website Rotten Tomatoes, Black Panther is currently rated at 97%, which is higher than other extremely popular superhero movies like X-Men Days of Future Past and even The Dark Knight. Earlier this year in February, Rotten Tomatoes had an editorial in which they reported that Black Panther, with a rating of 98% at the time, was ranked higher than any other live-action superhero movie listed on the site. And I'm not here to tell you that Black Panther is a bad movie, but I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon and say that it's one of the best superhero movies ever made. You probably already think I'm crazy, but let me try to explain why I feel the way I do about this movie. And by the way, even though I don't think that Killmonger is an earth-shattering, groundbreaking, amazing villain like everyone else says, I don't think he was a terrible villain. He was okay. I just think that he's extremely overrated. And I think that Michael B. Jordan did a great job with the character that he was given. I don't have any issues with him. He did a solid job. Okay, so the first thing I want to point out is that a lot of these videos have titles making the dramatic claim that
Killmonger is the best Marvel villain ever.
And then they're very careful to say in their videos or in their video descriptions that they're talking specifically about Marvel Cinematic Universe villains. And that's a really important distinction to make, because as soon as we limit ourselves to the MCU, that means we can't talk about movies like the X-Men franchise or any of the earlier Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield. And that's one of the reasons why I think Killmonger is so overrated. Because as others have already said, a lot of MCU villains so far have been really bad or just plain boring. So comparatively, compared to these other villains, Killmonger stands out and he seems a lot better. Even though really, in the grand scheme of things, he's not that great. It's just that his competition is really weak. This video is a response in general to the high praise that Black Panther has received, but I'm going to be focusing especially on the commentary by ScreenCrush, GameSpot, and MediaMuse. Let's start with ScreenCrush. ScreenCrush argues that there are three main aspects to a great villain. First, they have to be a powerful threat to the hero. Which is true, but if you think about it, is there really any villain that's not a threat to the protagonist? That's not really the hallmark of a great villain, that's just a prerequisite of being a villain. To try to prove their point, ScreenCrush then uses Loki as an example of a villain that's not really a threat to the main heroes. But the problem with that is, in most movies, so far at least, Loki has not been the main villain. He's usually a side character for exactly the reason that ScreenCrush is explaining. His main role is to shake things up and serve as an unpredictable element in the story. And if you look up the mythology of the character, this makes sense. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, Loki is a cunning trickster, and that's exactly what he does in the movies. He's deceptive, he's deceitful, and you don't really know what he's going to do. That augments the storyline, but he's not really meant to be the primary threat to the heroes in most cases, so I don't think it's the most accurate comparison for ScreenCrush to make. So anyway, being a powerful threat to the hero doesn't really make Killmonger special in any way, because that's just something that villains do. And it's not a great standard to measure exceptional villains by, since it's something that any villain pretty much has to have as a quality in order to classify as a villain in the first place. After they're done bashing Loki for a little bit, ScreenCrush then says that Killmonger, unlike Loki, is terrifying. I don't know about you, but I didn't find Killmonger terrifying. He's basically just a shirtless tough guy. Of course, in real life he would be intimidating, but as far as movie villains go, he's not notably scary. Okay, number 2 on ScreenCrush's list. A good villain needs to have a sympathetic backstory. But should Killmonger's backstory really generate that much sympathy? He grew up without a father, and he was supposedly betrayed by his family. But hold on here, because who was Killmonger's father, and why is he dead? Well, the reason why Killmonger's father is dead is because he was trying to sell vibranium weapons to other people to start a war, just like Killmonger ends up doing. So Killmonger's dad had bad intentions, and that's why he was killed. Of course, Killmonger sees himself as being a victim who was betrayed, and I understand that. But as an audience, why would we sympathize with this character? He grew up without his dad and didn't get to have a life of royalty.
Those nasty, tricksy Wakandans stole it from us, precious. Just like the Hobbitses.
But that's pretty much all you can say for him. ScreenCrush then says that the Black Panther filmmakers implicitly told the audience that Killmonger deserves to beat the heroes. What? Okay, so Killmonger had a rough life growing up, but why would that suddenly make us want him to succeed with his current plans? He's not a good person, and whatever he was as a child, that's gone. What we see for most of the film is the current adult version of Killmonger who wants to start a global war. So why would we sympathize with him? When you think about what Killmonger was trying to accomplish and what the implications of his victory would have been, it seems clear that we should not want him to succeed.
We're gonna send vibranium weapons out to our war dogs. They'll arm oppressed people all over the world, so they can finally rise up and kill those in power, and their children, and anyone else who takes their side.
And anyway, there are plenty of villains out there that don't have sympathetic backstories but are phenomenal villains. I mean, what about Sauron from Lord of the Rings, or Voldemort from Harry Potter, or the Joker from The Dark Knight? You don't feel sorry for any of these characters, and they don't have weepy background stories, but they're still outstanding villains. And I'll talk more about that later. ScreenCrush's third requirement for any great villain is to serve the overall theme of the film. But this is just as nonsensical as their first point about villains needing to be a real threat to the heroes. It's just so obvious and common with villains that it doesn't really make Killmonger better than the average villain in any way. For example, Obadiah Stane in the first Iron Man movie. Was he not a true threat to Iron Man, and did he not serve the overall theme of the movie? Or what about the Red Skull from the first Captain America movie? I'd say he was a challenging enemy for Captain America, and he fit in well with the World War II theme. The same goes for Ultron and a lot of others. To be honest, I get the sense that ScreenCrush created their list of criteria based completely off of Killmonger, instead of having a predefined set of criteria and judging him off of that. You know, it's sort of like they looked at Killmonger and tried to reverse engineer a list of qualities that they think any good villain should have. They spend a lot of their video comparing Killmonger to Loki, as if Loki's the only other villain out there, and they're forgetting that there are a lot of other things, besides the three things that they came up with, that determine whether or not a villain is good. For example, what about their costume and their powers? Those are things that need to be interesting as well, and they're areas where Killmonger is pretty weak. He's got super strength and, I guess, durability, and that's about it. And when it comes to supervillains, the costume and the powers are important. And by the way, ScreenCrush also says that this upside-down, rotating camera shot in the movie is symbolic of Africa on a map switching from the bottom to the top. Because they're on top now, you know, in the New World Order.
What is that, a new bear?
Alright, I can't bully ScreenCrush for this whole video. You know, I've got to share the love a little bit. So let's take a look at GameSpot's video. I would say they did a much better job than ScreenCrush at trying to explain why they think Killmonger is so great, but I still have a few issues with some of their reasoning. One of the things that they really emphasize is that good villains need to be relatable. To relate to something means that you can connect to it and draw parallels to your own life or situation. But are you really saying that you can relate to someone who's covered their body with markings representing all the people that they've killed, is intent upon sparking a racial, worldwide war, and has no qualms about killing his own people in order to achieve his goals? I struggle to relate to that. I can see how people might relate to his rough childhood and the frustration he has with racism in the world, but he's turned into a monster and there's little left to relate to. Killmonger is an anachronistic extremist. He clings to the past as a way of justifying his evil plans for revenge and domination in the present. The point being, this is not a good role model or someone that we should relate to. And the movie makers are quite aware of that because they made Killmonger the villain and showed that while he raised some good questions, which T'Challa was able to learn from, he was still misguided and ultimately did not have the right answers to the problems he identified, which is something that GameSpot does acknowledge. However, some people seem to have missed the message and are finding Killmonger relatable for all the wrong reasons. To demonstrate that, I found two articles written by authors who are alarmingly disillusioned. This one by Cliff Cawthon is really nicely written. I will compliment him on that. He's very well spoken. But man, this article is filled with crazy talk. He says that growing up, he came to learn and normalize the reality of America's hatred of blackness. And he also claims that Killmonger's father in the film eloquently defends his radicalization, a defense that in 15 seconds encapsulates the injustice and despair America has imposed upon black people here. He makes it sound as though 21st century modern-day America is attempting to be as racist towards blacks as it can and make black people as miserable as it can. You know, so he's essentially grouping all Americans or all white people. I don't even know. He's taking a whole population of people that live in America and generalizing them into one massive stereotype. He then says that one of the scenes in the movie sets up the important conversation that says more about our present-day America than Marvel's fictional universe. America doesn't care about black people. It never has. For some reason, this author repeatedly refers to America and black people as though they're two separate entities. I don't know why he's verbally segregating black people from America, because aside from being a grotesque exaggeration, he's ignoring the fact that blacks are themselves American. They are and have been a central part of America and its history for a long time. And so alluding to some sort of America versus blacks mentality makes it sound as if blacks and America are two separate things. They're not. Mr. Cawthon describes the movie as escapist wish fulfillment and says that the desire for revenge versus a desire to maintain what one has is not only the main conflict presented in the movie, but it's also a compelling idea that every historically oppressed population faces every day. But is that really true? Are minorities who've been wronged in the past so bitter about it that every single day they debate whether or not they should try to exact a violent revenge? I really hope not. Now, before I say more, I should probably preface it by saying that I am fully aware of how horribly black people have been treated throughout history. They've endured some of the worst atrocities ever committed. And I'm also aware of the fact that in today's world and today's society, there is still lots of racism and evil, prejudiced people. I completely understand that. So please don't misconstrue anything that I'm saying here. But I think it's a stretch for people to compare today's circumstances with the same circumstances experienced by minority groups hundreds of years ago. So when Killmonger says,
Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships, because they knew death was better than bondage.
those ancestors had a much worse situation and faced infinitely worse forms of bigotry than blacks living in modern-day America. People also keep referencing that line in the movie about liberating billions of oppressed black people around the world, and then everyone acts as though that's some profound statement that is incredibly relevant in today's world. But the use of the words oppression and liberation insinuate that there's a widespread, collectivized, and purposeful effort by white people everywhere to discriminate against and hold back black people. That sort of belief, and Killmonger's mission to liberate billions of oppressed black people, might have made sense back in the late 19th or early 20th centuries, when European imperialism and colonialism ran rampant across the African continent and other parts of the world, or when slavery was ubiquitous in America back in the 1800s, but not in the 21st century. Blacks aren't oppressed in the same way, and the type of violent reaction that Killmonger endorses is no longer rational. It's also a very harmful, counterproductive way of thinking. The concept of uniting blacks around the world into a militant, Pan-African coalition bent on the revengeful destruction of whites is tantamount to senselessly murdering an entire population for wrongs committed generations ago. I mean, by that logic, Native Americans ought to rise up and slaughter everyone, white and black, for colonizing their land. True efforts at building a better world with equality for all would involve bringing people together, not splitting them apart and encouraging war. And that's something that T'Challa understands, which is why he's the hero. So no, Killmonger is not relatable, and his ambitions aren't something that we should sympathize with. Over on ShadowandAct.com, in an article titled, "In Defense of Eric Killmonger and the Forgotten Children of Wakanda," Brooke Obi writes that, and I quote, "Killmonger's ultimate goal is a global black revolution. I fist-pumped in the silent dark theater when he was laying out his plans. It's a good idea." End quote. So we have people like this, who actually think that what Killmonger was trying to accomplish is a good thing. It's just crazy. And it's strange to me, because these people completely miss the entire point of the movie that they like so much. Because in the movie, T'Challa himself says to Killmonger, "You want to see us become just like the people you hate so much." So by the end of the movie, it's pretty much spelled out for everyone, or at least it should be, that Killmonger is in the wrong, and he shouldn't be defended. So that's why I take issue when people like Media Muse say that a good villain like Killmonger should be the hero of their own story, have a compelling argument, and command admiration, because, for me at least, it's difficult to reconcile Killmonger with any of those qualities. I want to wrap this up, but there are a couple last points I want to make. GameSpot and ScreenCrush assert that a good villain needs to be relatable, have sympathetic motivations, have a tragic backstory, or be morally ambiguous to the point that the audience doesn't know who to root for. But while a good villain can be sympathetic, they don't have to be, even though other people are acting as if it's a character trait inherent in any villain worth their salt. There doesn't always have to be a deep, psychoanalytical reason behind their evil deeds. The example I'll give is Bartholomew Bogue from the recent remake of The Magnificent Seven. Bogue terrorizes and exploits the people of Rose Creek, and when they try to resist him, he sets fire to their church, beats up some innocent townspeople, gives them an ultimatum,
I return to Rose Creek. 3 weeks. Those of you who accept my offer, whose signed deeds are on my desk when I return, to get their $20.
Get off me!
Those of you who do not, may your good Lord help you.
and then this happens.
Isabel, no!
Already, within 10 minutes of the movie, Bogue has most likely elicited feelings of shock and outrage from the audience and revealed himself to be a depraved, ruthless person. There's no sad background story here, and we don't need one. We don't need to know how he got this way. What matters is that he is, and that he's going to be a worthy adversary of the 7 protagonists. One last thing about Killmonger. Michael B. Jordan himself, the actor who played Killmonger, said, and this is a quote, "I think one of the challenges for us, if we do our jobs the right ways, is hopefully making Killmonger somebody you guys can root for too. Hopefully a lot of people, when they see the film, they're able to connect with him." I've already talked at length about why I don't think that Killmonger was someone to root for, but I want to give an example of a villain that I think is easier to root for and sympathize with. The example I'll give is the Penguin in Season 1 of the TV series Gotham, played to perfection by Robin Lord Taylor. Gotham is a very different show now than when it started, and I would say it's ruined a lot of the things that initially made it fun to watch, but the first season was a masterpiece. The Penguin fell to the very bottom and was determined to rise back up to take over the city's criminal underworld. Even though he did some pretty awful things along the way, you couldn't help but want him to succeed, and that was in part because he was an underdog. He isn't a brawny thug who can use his fists to get to the top. Instead, he uses his intelligence and cunning, frequently taking advantage of the fact that others underestimate him. On top of that, he just comes across as a quirky, endearing character.
All I wanted was a little respect.
But Killmonger does not have that same likability.
It is our tradition.
When I tell you to do something, I mean that shit.
He acts like a disrespectful, bitter, entitled bully, whereas the Penguin was the type of character that usually got bullied by others. And that's one of the reasons why the Penguin was more relatable and easier to root for than Killmonger, at least in my opinion. Okay, enough about Killmonger. As for the actual movie, I feel about it pretty much the same way that I feel about Killmonger himself. It's not bad, I don't think it's a horrible movie, it just doesn't deserve so much praise, and it's probably a little below average. The main issues I have with it are, its storyline is pretty simple, there's not that much to it. The effects were just okay, which seems odd because usually for a Marvel movie, amazing effects are just a given. But for whatever reason, and I don't know the technical reasons behind it, but it just seemed like there were a lot of instances where it looked like the characters were standing in front of a green screen. It's almost like they didn't adjust the colors and the lighting the right way to make the characters blend into the background, but it just looked off. And then one of the other problems I have with the movie is I don't think the characters were that interesting, and that includes T'Challa. T'Challa was already a prince and superhero at the start of the movie. We're not told why he's a great leader or a great fighter, and those are skills which surely weren't provided by the potion that he took to become Black Panther. It would have been more interesting to witness how he became the man that he is. That would have spiced up the storyline while also giving us more of a reason to see T'Challa as a hero, other than the fact that the movie told us,
"This is the hero of the story. You will like him."
After all, usually when we see the start of a new superhero franchise, we're introduced to the character and shown how they become the hero that they're meant to be. Look at Spider-Man. It's a story about responsibility, tragedy, and Peter's struggles with guilt, relationships, and money. All of these things draw us in and help us truly empathize with the hero, or at least understand them better. Another example is Captain America. Before we're introduced to the Star-Spangled Avenger, we're introduced to Steve Rogers. We see how he has to deal with the obstacles of bullying and physical frailty, despite the best intentions of serving his country and assisting with the war effort. Again, it gets the audience more invested into the character. Alright, so that is why I think that Killmonger and Black Panther are overrated. Please feel free to comment below. I'd really like to hear your thoughts. I'm sure that some of you really did not agree with some of the things that I said, and that's completely fine. I totally respect your opinion. I would just ask that you respect my opinion as well, and just don't attack me personally. We're all fans here, we're all on the same side. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day.